Okay, hello everybody, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the podcast. Today we have Monette Esparcia and Sarah Troupe, and we're going to be doing a mock interview. So, just to reiterate, the podcast's purpose is to shed light on the employment journey or getting to that next step in your career with ServiceNow. Sarah's currently looking to land that first role. So the focus will be for that aspect, and the mock interview will be based upon that as well. We're going to go through the mock interview, and then we'll discuss the questions and their answers. And at the end, we're going to have some closing remarks. And just a reminder, this is kind of just a listening in party, so we won't be taking any questions or anything like that. Okay, so thank you so much. And with that, we'll do a light introduction for Monette. So if you can just tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm Monette Esparcia, and I'm the founder of Perti Solutions Incorporated.
Thanks so much. Okay, and Sarah?
I'm Sarah Troupe, and I have been walking through ServiceNow for the past year for my CSA, and have been mentored by Chris and by Jeremy Duncan.
Excellent. Okay, so with that, let's start the mock interview.
Perfect. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
So first, can you tell me a little bit something about yourself and why you're interested in the ServiceNow role?
Yes, so I have been, let's see. So ServiceNow was brought to me about 3 years ago, and I wanted to, during this time, I wanted to pay $20,000 to go kind of into the coding IT world. And Jeremy Duncan had approached me and said that, hey, we have this ServiceNow. Do you want to go into it? And I paid for the actual CSA class, and this was back before Next Gen or Rise Up. And I was working 2 jobs and trying to get through ServiceNow, and didn't really have a knowledge. And I was kind of overwhelmed with the amount of what ServiceNow was. So I took some time, refocused. I took the exam in the beginning and kind of got discouraged with it. And then I refocused and really applied what I knew to my developer. And then I got my CSA last year, and I really want to be in the IT world, and work from home is a bonus, but also just learning new things and just really grasping what ServiceNow is all about.
Thank you.
And
Perfect. Oh, so go ahead.
a little bit about me, I'm like very driven. I've worked 2 jobs. I currently still work 2 jobs. I have my cleaning business on the side that I still is kind of like therapy for me. So I like to be busy, and I like to be kind of project overseer of my household and finances and all that.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial. That's
Yeah.
a great quality. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for telling me about yourself. All right, so we're in the interest of time, this mock interview is just gonna be limited to very few questions. Normally we have more. So in this case, I'll just ask like maybe 1 or 2 technical questions, and the rest are just to get to know how you work. So the first one would be, what is the difference between a client-side script or what's the difference between client-side scripting and server-side scripting in ServiceNow?
The client side and server side. So client side would be what what the client sees, like what they're going to be working on. You can kind of think of that as like Amazon, like what they see, like when you go and buy something. And then the server side is how you set that up. That's just kind of how I think about it, like the back end, how you would set that up to be able for them to click on this or not have this as an option, read only, things like that. So that's more of the server side.
Okay, give me an example of when you would have to set up a side script. Like what requirement from a client would make you do a client side script?
Let's see. Client side. Oh, let's see. Client side, server side. I'm trying to differentiate. So the script is what's throwing me off. It's almost like you want to go out and make a special script for that, like coding. So, I mean, in just kind of guessing, it would be something like just for like, I'm gonna use Amazon as an example, like something just for them to see, and that you have to create a script for just that page or something like that.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess we will have time to discuss that later also. And I'm sorry, this might not even be appropriate for a first ServiceNow role as well. I'm sorry about that, but that's perfect though. Thank you. We'll discuss that further later.
Okay.
If that makes sense. All right. Okay. So what about SLAs? Have you done any SLAs in your journey in learning ServiceNow?
I have not, but that stands for service level agreement, correct?
Yes, that's exactly.
So I would say in my current role, that where I work, we have to make sure that we hit the service level agreements for different projects in our contract. I can't really go into a lot of detail, but yes, I have worked with SLAs.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now tell me about the time in whether in your entrepreneurial journey, in your previous work, where you had conflicts or issues with either clients or coworkers or bosses, and how did that go about?
Let's see. Recently,
Oh, not
um,
necessarily recently, in
oh,
your whole experience.
yeah. So I will say, working with clients, um, in my cleaning business, I had an Airbnb downtown, which had different levels, like I would say like condos versus just little hotel rooms. I mean, it was in the same building, and you have to get past the political side of it, and you have to learn how to um, what is going to benefit the client? How are you going to explain, hey, we might need to go in and renovate this room that's going to cost you $20,000, but here is why you need to do that. It's because you're spending too much time on cleaning the grout in the bathroom, and your cleaners are not, utilizing their time because the grout's falling out, or whatever the case is, that they can't get it clean. I know um, having to spend extra time on a room where you can be cleaning, you know, a condo that charges more, things like that. You have to benefit the client financially, and communicate that to them, how it will benefit them to do this thing that may cost them more money.
Perfect. Was there a particular instance that you had to was there a particular issue in that where you had to navigate? And can you just give me a little bit of an example where they said, oh, we don't want to do this, but you felt that that actually would be better for them?
Yes. So I would say, like, it's a high rise condo on the fourth floor. A lot of the times the clients, I mean, they were charging $2,000 a week to live in there, and it was some pretty celebrities, I would say, that would come down and stay in these condos, and they would have, I would go in there and clean maybe once every 3 months, and I felt like they needed someone in there every couple weeks, because when I'd go in there every 3 months, it was a disaster, and it would take me 5 or 6 hours just to clean, even with help. to clean this condo, and they would come back in and do the same thing. So I felt like they needed to have someone come in monthly to help with that. And they didn't really feel that that was worth their money to have a cleaner come in. And I felt like in the long run, it would help keep the place in better shape monthly. So they ended up doing the monthly with the clients.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So you were able to break it down for them what the benefit
Yeah.
is to them. Okay, that's perfect, because that's
Yeah.
really important
I
communication.
mean, and
and
like, I'll just give you an example, like the bathroom where, you know, they were probably having parties and such. The bathroom alone would take me an hour and a half. And
Wow.
you know, and it's not just, it's the maintenance of the grout, of, you know, making sure the drains are flowing, because we'd also have to have maintenance in there at the same time. So having it done monthly benefited them, because they wouldn't be charged as much, you know, as a last minute, oh, I need to get this place clean.
Yes, exactly. Those were some parties.
Yeah. It was interesting, let me tell you.
I'm definitely old. I don't have those parties anymore. Chris might still do. Chris is, or maybe not. I don't know.
No.
Chris had fun parties at his time.
It's too gray. That's true. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, as you're aware, there's this, as you are actually an instructor of it, the Next Gen program, right? So ServiceNow is wanting to train as many, and so there are a lot that are also trying to apply for jobs. And for you applying for your first ServiceNow role, you'd have competitors that are, like, you know, similar in that case. So why should we hire you? Like, what do you think is your unfair advantage?
I feel that just having mentors and having just the experience of going through not just the, like, being an instructor as the Next Gen, but when it started, like when my journey started, I didn't have videos, I didn't have um, you know, labs and things like that. It was, you pretty much had to read the material and learn it, and you didn't have, I mean, you had to go out and, you know, YouTube and try to understand the concepts. And I feel like my advantage is not just teaching it, but having to go in there into the developer instance and learn it on my own, and be able to communicate that to other people, not just in the Next Gen, but, you know, speaking with Chris and speaking with Jeremy. Like, you know, Jeremy and I had talked at the last developer. Like, he feels like in the last year, I finally grasped the concepts of ServiceNow. So, and I mean, I feel like I'm a go-getter. I'm going to learn my job, and, you know, I'm going to, you know, be a developer one day. That's my end goal.
That's perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you. Chris, do we have time for more questions, or? Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right, okay, so that's awesome that you're a go-getter and you would like to become a developer one day, because everyone that would like to hire you would obviously want you to progress that way, or a man, whatever your wants are. But it's good that you want to be a developer. So what are you, if you get the position, what are you going to be doing within the company or with your own time to make sure you progress towards that goal? What are the
Um,
activities you have in mind?
yeah, absolutely. So, I was just speaking with Chris. I definitely want to create a YouTube channel for the Next Gen, so that they kind of meet it. They know their expectations of coming out of the Next Gen class, kind of my journey and how I can help them. I feel like there's a lot of people coming out not knowing what to do and how to do it. And my goal would be to help them and mentor them as best I can, just as Chris and Jeremy have done for me.
Perfect. That's awesome. Giving back.
Mhm.
That's always, yeah, always the thing to do. That's awesome that you're already thinking about that. Um, okay. And with working with teams in the past, what has been your biggest challenge with working with teams?
I would say servant leadership. In my current role, I have learned just a lot about serving others. There's just kind of I'm in HR and I do a lot of schedules, and knowing that I'm not always right in the servant leadership, and being able to help people as best I can.
Okay, perfect. So, am I understanding it correctly that the challenge is that you're you're wanting to understand or know more how you could serve more? Is
Yes,
that correct? Okay, perfect.
yes. Being in the role that I am, over 45 people in their schedules, and I have to be able to communicate with them like what they need, and if there's issues, how to de-escalate those things.
Okay, and then do you, with regards to, let's say, customizations versus configurations, are you familiar with the difference between the two?
Say that again.
Between like, you know, customization, sorry, I always say customizations and no one understands customizations and the difference between customizations and configuration.
Yes, I do believe so. So customization would be, I'm just going to throw this out there. So customization would be like what the company wants to customize, like HR or things like that. And then configurations would be to be able to configure it to what the company bought and want.
Um, Yeah, you're on the right track. We could discuss that further later too.
Okay.
Have you, in your learning of ServiceNow, was there any discussions that you've learned about when to do customizations or when not to, or like that, which one is the better practice, or and whatnot? Or I know.
So not really, but I would think that customizations would be like back end scripting, uh, like I don't know. I've been kind of going through a lot of.
Oh, Sarah, I think you froze, unless that's me.
I think she might have frozen because I can hear
Oh,
you.
okay, yeah. Oh, did you come back, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you froze at the very start of that answer, so if you could take it from
Okay.
that part.
Yes. So I
Thanks.
was saying that I've been doing a lot of scripting. So I would say customization would be going in there and like actually scripting what the client wants versus the configurations of using what ServiceNow already has. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
So, okay. All right. Another would be.
Oh, can we make this one the last one?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Actually,
sorry,
we
thanks.
could stop there and then we
No,
can
no.
discuss the others already.
Okay, no. Usually the last question is, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any questions for me?
I would say what is the culture of your company?
That's a perfect question. Yeah. So that's I could discuss my culture, but this is not for me. So I won't, let's not go there, but I could discuss probably, Chris, what I would have expected from that answer, or we could do that later as like we go
Nope,
through.
go for it. Go for
Okay,
it.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, Sarah. Like, yeah, culture is definitely perfect. What would be best also if you had a chance to, let's say when you do an interview with a company, you look at their website already, some of them would have their culture on the website already. That would show that you have done your research and you're passionate about that company. And what would be great is, like, obviously that was a good question for you, for me, because you didn't know and you're not really applying for my company, right? So, but if you apply for a specific company, you go through their culture and then, you know, like familiarize it and ask a question about that. Or say something like, I really liked your culture, especially this one. So I just wanted to know like how you're implementing that. Or, you know, another thing that I do appreciate is when someone asks, what's the exact. Usually the expectations are very clearly laid out in the job description, which is perfect. But if it's not, you'd be like, what's the exact outcome that you want out of my role? And also, What's this? What is the mentorship and support system in
Mm.
the company? Because you also, as a first role in ServiceNow role, you will need that support and mentorship. Not to say that you will need hand holding, because of course you want to be someone that's independent, but you'd like to understand what sort of guidance do they provide for your role, right? Because if they tell you, oh, we're a company that's very fast paced, we really expect someone to just be on their own, because that is a reality, right? And that could just be something that you might like. You'd be like, I like that challenge, I'm like, that's how I want. But it could be that it's not something for you because you want to grow. So then you can ask further questions about that, or you yourself would be like, okay, this is not a great fit for me, like, there's a bunch of questions about these things, but if they don't have any culture on their website, then that's the perfect question for sure.
Okay. All right. So clearly, yeah, the mock interview part has ended. Now we've all gone through these types of interviews, and even as recently in the past year for me, you get through and you answer, or you get asked something that you don't know. So how do I handle that? We're going to run through all of the questions that were asked. So, and then Monette, if you could just comment on how that answer was received or perceived on your side. So the first one was tell me about yourself and why are you interested in a ServiceNow role? How did that go for you?
Okay, perfect. So overall, you did well, Sarah. I just need to go through each one very carefully just to give you more feedback. I did feel that you were not ready for that question because you hesitated and you had to pause. This would be a question that you should have like kind of like a canned answer to, like not obviously canned, of course, but you should have like what they call an elevator pitch. Where that there's like a few lines you say, not too long, not too short, but start with something about yourself first. Because I think you started with ServiceNow and how you got into it, which is part of the question. The question was like, how would you like? But first go into yourself just a tiny bit. They have your resume in front of them. So, but unfortunately, the reality of it is in a lot of the hiring managers, they don't have time to read through the resume. It's filtered out by someone, their secretary or their other recruitment, and then they just send them what the top ones are, but they don't have the time to read all of it. So for you to give a brief summary of that, of just like your professional experience, your like current role, and then if there's a story behind why you're wanting ServiceNow, which you did, so, but make it short and make it be like, so you're an entrepreneur, and in your past roles, you had to develop an on-track system or like a tracking system or something like that, right? For on-call and whatnot. So you could say something, of course, it has to be all genuine and all true. Like
Yes.
go through your history and see, okay, what would have driven you to want to be this role? And then be like, well, in my past role, I've developed this, tracking this, and I've realized ServiceNow with these things where you can want to implement some things, make them systematically like better and have the process better and develop in record time. ServiceNow can do that. So this is something that I'm passionate with, like connect it. I don't have to, I think you got you got my point. And then also like say about maybe if this is true, like while you did the next gen, you've been so passionate about it that now in fact you're an instructor, and while doing that you're learning more and more about ServiceNow and you really want to get into this field. Obviously everything has to be true, but
Yeah.
go through. Okay, so that's
So so you'll have some of these common experiences as everybody goes through this, and this is why a mock interview is so important, is that you can understand what are some of the questions that are going to be thrown at and which ones can I prepare for. This is a common one. This comes up. Tell me about yourself and why are you interested in ServiceNow? And the way to stand out is to have a rehearsed answer.
Yes.
And make it personable and interactive so it doesn't sound like you're reading a script. Don't write it and read off of the page because I'll see your eyes and I'll then, but being prepared for that kind of stuff is going to help you. Just like Sarah, if you were to ask me a question related to your industry, I would be unprepared. So I would want to do mock interviews related to the places that you're working in and understand that type of business so that we can go through. Okay, so Monette, now the next two questions were technical, and Sarah, your answers were technically incorrect.
Okay.
So if we don't know the answer, and this happens to me, this has just happened to me in the past few months. How do we handle that? So we're going to do two things on this. Number one, Monette, can you ask me the client side and server side scripting question, and I will answer it so that people can get the answer.
Yes, absolutely. All right. What is the difference between client-side scripting and server-side scripting in ServiceNow?
Okay. So client-side scripting is code that is written and executes on the client side. So think of a user who's accessing a service portal or the employee center. You have a client script that is loaded onto their machine and it executes code on their computer. So the execution of it, or the actual CPU cycles, are taken up by the client side. You have certain functionality that is available to you with client-side scripting and a separate set of best practices compared to server-side scripting, which is a code that is executed on the ServiceNow servers and also has a different piece of governance that runs around it, different functionality that's available to it, but both are based off of JavaScript. So you can understand, if you understand one and the other, they're very similar and you can pick up both. They also can work together, and one of the most common use cases and implementation strategies to use client-side and server-side scripting together is called Glide Ajax. And this is where Glide Ajax is executed on the client side. It reaches out to the server. You can send information to it. The server executes code and can send a response. And then you can process the response on the client side. So that's very technical. That is, I would not expect an admin to be able to answer that. But let's say I don't know. I admit it right out of the gate. And that is fine, because then I don't just say, I don't know, next question. I say, okay, here's how I would find out. Or here's how, and this speaks to your self-learning and your entrepreneurial spirit when it comes to figuring it out on your own. So I would say, okay, well, whenever I'm not sure on the difference between client-side scripting and server-side scripting, here's how I would find out. First, I would go look at the ServiceNow docs site and see if there's anything on there that will help me understand both of these pieces that you had just mentioned. Secondly, if I can't find anything on the docs site, you mentioned scripting. So then I would want to look at the developer website, which has documentation that is more suited to developers. If I still am struggling, or maybe I found partial documentation and I'm not understanding it, then I might reach out or search the community on ServiceNow. And I also have an expansive network with many experienced people that I can reach out to directly and get that outcome that you're looking for. And then finally, I would look towards building my PDI or experimenting within it so that I can, come back with this new knowledge and apply it. Okay, great. Can you ask me the SLA question?
Yeah, I just basically asked her if she has done any SLAs or what she knows of SLAs.
Okay, so SLAs are based on SLA definitions. And typically, out of the box in ServiceNow, we have two kinds. There's response SLAs, which indicate if an SLA has been acknowledged, or, I have assigned something out. Let's say there's a P1 incident that comes in and it has been unassigned and I have to assign it contractually within 30 minutes. That is a response SLA, and I could maybe consider that response SLA being met if there's a value in the assigned to box. Then there's resolution SLAs. And then you would have those things based on maybe the state of the incident. How long did it take to get to that resolved state? When I set up these SLA definitions, there's multiple conditions for starting, canceling, resetting, pausing, stopping as well. Finally, when I have all of those packaged in, I need to make sure that all of my SLA definitions work well with each other. For example, many of them are built on the priority. I'll refer back to my incident one. Let's say the incident's priority, so let's say the incident's priority gets upgraded. Then I need to cancel maybe a P2 SLA and trigger the P1 SLA. All of this then can trigger individual workflows or commonly used workflows to help take action at any stage in the SLA, maybe 50% completed, 75 at breach. I can have an escalation path, etc. All of that feeds into our SLA strategy that then can be used to report and understand what is being met and how they're being met and how often. Okay.
Perfect.
Did I miss anything?
No.
I just did SLA, so.
No, I do want to point out she did at least get the meaning of it.
Yes.
With it. Also, but just to add, Sarah, thank you for that, Chris. Also to add, Sarah, it is perfectly fine to say if you have not, ServiceNow is a huge platform, right? So the key thing is that the interviewer sees that you have humility to like say that I don't actually know that, but you also have that interest in knowing, and that's exactly what Chris said. This is how I'm going to find out. That actually gives them the knowledge that, okay, whatever they like give at you in the future, you have and you know how to find and look for them.
Yeah, you've got a process on how to figure it out and learn it. And remember, Sarah, you do have, we'll talk about the unfair advantage later, but you've got an unfair advantage when it comes to a network. So you can reach out and get that personalized help from people that are very experienced, more experienced than I. Looking at you, Jeremy. So just, want to make sure that you acknowledge that. Part of my interviews when I'm going through them is that I do bring an extensive contact list. Another thing is that there's actually a network of CMAs so that I can leverage that other people don't have access to if they're not CMA. So that, and I have leveraged that, strategically for clients as needed, but you've also got that as well. So that's a benefit that you bring. So even if I don't have the skill set, or maybe, the last time I leveraged it was based around FedRAMP, which is US, but I'm Canadian. So I didn't really have the access. So I can kind of get that stuff and leverage it from the CMA forums that we've got. Okay, so go ahead. No, finish.
And Chris, sorry, just like tagging on to that unfair advantage. I did like Sarah in that question that you did mention you have mentors and that you are an instructor. You did mention those which are great. I just a few more things is because you have your entrepreneurial side, you could also add to that as your unfair advantage because entrepreneurs usually find solutions to things and really are go-getters, not in a bragging way, but you could include that as like you have that in you and you are going to be helping that company because you would be working in the company as kind of an entrepreneur working and getting this company to a better place, right? So that's actually one of your unfair advantages compared to, well, most probably that are in your area. Obviously, we don't know all the next gen applicants there, but just generally speaking. And lastly, because always go through all your past experiences, look for whatever is true. Like you've been an escrow coordinator. And let's say, for example, in that role, you had to have a very good skill for attention to detail. If you have exceptional attention to detail, that's definitely, part of an unfair advantage. So again, go through all your experiences. What are the skills that were needed that you could actually highlight to your employer and showcase that you've actually lived it, right? So now you're just gonna be doing it in ServiceNow. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
it.
So I think you've covered a lot of the items. So, it's going to be kind of a lather, rinse, repeat for the rest of these things. So your unfair advantage, why should we hire you? That's another opportunity where we can have a predefined response, or at least a framework of a response. This is going to come up, not even in ServiceNow, just in anything. What are you going to be doing within the company to advance your goal? I thought she handled that well. Your thoughts on that one, Monette?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just one more thing on that one is maybe you could say that you like an actual plan of activities. Let's say when you hire me, I'm planning to like reach out maybe to the team regularly to see what else they need help. Just an actual, so that you're not just saying broad things, but you're saying not very specific detailed plans as well, but concrete
Great.
things.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. You covered the goal of how you do the developer. I think you covered the biggest challenge piece. And this one was a good one because this wasn't related to ServiceNow, but like directly, but you were able to say, this is how it could apply.
Yes.
And that is going to be the way that you do this to break into IT. So if I'm not in IT, how do I relate my existing skill set into this piece of IT? Okay, let's get to customizations versus configuration. Can you ask me that one?
Okay, so what's the difference between customizations and configurations?
The current definition, which has evolved over time by ServiceNow, is that a customization is updating a record in ServiceNow that is in the baseline. A configuration is generally considered to be configuring the platform to meet your needs in a way that does not change that existing record. An example would be a configuration of creating a new catalog item with its own variables and its own workflow or its own flow would be a configuration. A customization would be making an update to a script that comes in the baseline. That is the current definition. I believe that things are starting to evolve into a place of, is this going to need a change request? And is this going to impact the baseline? The change management process adds cost. Therefore, we need to make sure that it's incorporated into our decision. So that means if I'm adjusting the filter of a business rule, right now that's considered a configuration. But I have to regression test and go through the change process to get that into production. Therefore, in my opinion, it also has the equal amount of effort and cost to implement and maintain moving forward. So there are many discussions around customization and configuration. There are many debates,
Absolutely.
but ultimately, those are the ServiceNow definitions as they stand today. They will evolve over time. And we also are looking at how does this impact our upgrades and our monthly patches. So every time that we change the record, whether it's the filter, whether it's the code, etc., and ServiceNow makes an update to it in the future, we generate a skip change, and we must manually process those at this time. There are some automated ways to do so now that have come out in the Vancouver and Washington release, but we're still at a largely manual process, and this increases the cost of our upgrade and therefore the total cost of the solution.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, thank you. And I think the reason for asking that, Sarah, or if you will be asked that, is just for the hiring managers to know whether you're cognizant of this. Because as Chris said, there's so many debates about it. People are saying, oh, it's so wrong to customize. Some people are saying, no, it's okay within reason and within limits. And so it doesn't, what I was going for with that question is like, not your opinion in which is right or not, but that whether you are cognizant of it. Because as a developer, you always have to think, if you're asked something, whether this is customization or configuration, what is the impact of this in the scalability and the maintenance? That's it. And that way you will have to bring it up with your team if there's anything that raises a flag, right?
Yep. Okay, and the last question you had said was, do you have any questions for me? So, Sarah, you had a great one about the culture of the company. So that one I would always, keep, like Monette said, research something. And if you can add a personal touch to it, like I noticed your company culture is based off of your history of your Filipino heritage. In fact, it's in your name. I read that in your About Us. Can you tell me about that? See how she smiled?
Yeah.
That type will help. But we also have other things to cover. At a minimum, do you have any questions for me? There are 3 questions I believe you should be asking. Number 1, is there anything on my resume that you would like me to expand on, or perhaps anything that came out during this interview? The purpose of this question is to not leave anything on the table and to make them think, oh shoot, I forgot. These interviewers are human as well, and we've all been in a meeting and go, oh, I just ended the meeting and I should have asked this thing. You're giving that extra opportunity. 2, what is a typical day like for a person in this role? This is you interviewing them.
Yes.
Sometimes this may generate an answer where you realize you don't want to do this job. Maybe they say, oh, this is 80% developer, 20% admin, and you're not ready for that. Or maybe it's 50% of each, and you want to do way more of the other one. So you can determine how good of a fit this is going to be. And the last one, what are the next steps? We need to always trigger or do a call to action for the next steps. And sometimes the next steps are, we're going to take this away, we're going to debrief internally, and we may or may not get back to you. But at least you've asked. Maybe you're understanding a bit of their hiring practice or their hiring process. Maybe if you're looking for a government role, there's a security clearance process that you can start earlier if you're down that road. Okay, so are there any closing thoughts on the discussion piece, Monette?
No, just to bring back on that culture, Sarah. It's that a lot of the companies really hire for culture, like a cultural fit, and I think you were very familiar with that because you asked it. That's one of the hiring things, like whether it's respect, integrity, or their culture is like excellence. So you have to really look at that first, whether they fit you, right? Because if their culture says this is a very fast-paced company and this is our cultural fit, you have to really see if that fits you, then you highlight that. But if that doesn't fit you, then don't apply, if you know what I mean. They will say, most of the companies right now put in what their list of culture is, and you just need to, and the reason they do that is because they live by it, and then they also will hire with a fit, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Okay, Sarah, any closing thoughts on the discussion piece from you?
I would just say, like, the training, that's one of the ones that I asked in a different interview, and I realized very quickly that they wanted someone just to go in there and work. And I was like, okay, I'm good. But also, I think as the company, a lot of the times I felt like, hey, I was referenced for a role from another person, but I didn't really fit the role. And they were asking me questions that I didn't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
I guess really my question is as a company, do you put pressure on people? Like, are you willing to talk about those things in an interview and not feel like, I guess really my question is, like, they want you to apply to it, but they also, like, will put a lot of pressure on you. Like, we don't really want you at this place as a company. That makes sense.
Maybe expand a bit. So
Okay,
you're
so
being
let's say going into the interview, they put a lot of pressure on you, like, well, you didn't answer this question right, so they're just going to go off and do something else. Um,
Mhm.
and it kind of, I don't know if it like, it made me feel really nervous when I did that. Um, like in the beginning, it should have just been like, okay, I don't think that you're fit for this role, instead of
Mhm.
making me feel like really bad, like,
Yeah.
well, where do you see yourself in this position? And the company made me feel like, okay, like rethink my whole career, because they didn't elaborate, in the beginning, hey, I don't think this is
Mhm.
right for you. It just, they would look off and, you know, disengage with the whole interview.
Mhm.
And I just feel like companies, some companies need to address that in the very beginning.
Definitely, they do. And this also can speak to, is this company going to be a good fit for you, Sarah? So let's say we find ourselves in that situation. They're not paying attention. 5 minutes into this 90-minute interview, it's not going to be a fit.
Mhm.
Then it can become just a learning opportunity. So shift your expectations, and
Yeah.
that's going to adjust your confidence with it.
Okay.
Suddenly it turns into what we just did today, where I hope this improved your confidence,
Yes.
this one. And that even is acknowledging that the three technical questions, two were answered incorrectly and the other one was about 50% there, and that's okay. I'll repeat it again. I literally have just in the last few months said I don't know several times in the same interview, and Monette has reiterated as well. The platform is huge.
Yes.
I don't know all the modules. I don't know how to implement them all. And this is me understanding from them, can I do this? Or what would it take for me to get there? And I thought, and at the end of this, I said, I'm not the right person. I'm just not. I don't know GRC.
Yeah.
Right. So that's okay. And you'll go through and find, okay, now that I've learned about this, maybe the company's not like, do I want to work with people that treat others that way?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah. It was like just walking into, I mean, just on the video, it was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, like they don't really want me to have this job.
Mhm.
And it was very awkward in
Yeah.
Yes.
answering the questions. And I
Mhm.
guess I should have just, done, like, shifted my focus.
Well, but you can do that afterwards and
Yeah.
let go of the hit it took to your confidence. We all go through that.
Yeah.
So don't feel that you are alone, and don't feel that it's ever going to stop. As we've gone through some of these other episodes, we've talked about the imposter syndrome and not knowing everything. That's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be a part of this, part of the ServiceNow ecosystem. And that's also why we have the network
Yeah.
as well, to reach out. And let's say you reach out and ask me a question. I might go, oh, I don't know. Here's how I would find out. I use these tools. I follow this doc site developer, all that kind of reach out to my network as necessary types of things. You've got that same approach that you can take and go forward. Okay, well, in the last 10 minutes we have, so Monette, now's your time. Share what's going on in your life, and let's talk about Perti Solutions a bit, and let's share the history of it first, because I always like that part.
Sure. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. There's an issue with
Yes,
my.
totally clear. You're
Okay,
fine.
good. I can't hear myself clearly with my earphones, but then anyway, actually, so Chris and I go way back, actually worked together before, but let me go with the whole history. I was a software engineer for Java, came from the Philippines, became software engineer in Java, and became a team lead for a financial company. And Chris and I actually worked together a long, long, long time ago. We lost touch for a few years there, and he got into ServiceNow, I got into ServiceNow, and now we're in touch again. So I became ServiceNow developer for UBC, and then a ServiceNow project manager for partner of ServiceNow, and then I started my company. So
Sure.
this is
Just UBC is University of British Columbia. It's one of the largest in the province of BC. Some consider it to be the university. Sorry, SFU. I don't, there's, but it's definitely one of the top three at least, and is a huge place to work. I believe they still have ServiceNow as well. So
Yeah, so I was the one together with a colleague, Sam, that implemented ServiceNow there. And of course, it has evolved since I left. And yeah, so that prompted me being ServiceNow engagement manager, project manager, then prompted me to open my own company. The objective at first was to help ServiceNow partners with staff augmentation and recruitment, because I've noticed that there were a lot of partners that were struggling to find resources, especially at that time. I started in 2000, started my ServiceNow career in 2011, but I started my company in 2018. There was no next gen yet. There was very few, but also, of course, coming from the Philippines, I have a network of ServiceNow developers there, as well as I have connections in India. So ServiceNow partners that did not have offshore capability, they didn't know how to start there and whatnot, they worked with me to have offshore delivery centers, but I have resources here and in the US as well. Anyway, that's about it. We primarily work with ServiceNow partners, but recently, well, in 2018, we have also a direct client, but now we're also opening up to working with direct clients too.
oh, excellent. Okay, so if you're looking for any implementation, feel free to reach out to Monette through Perti Solutions. May I share the link to your website in the post?
Yes, absolutely.
so-
And just to make it clear, we do make implementations, but what we have focused in the last few years was really staff augmentation and recruitment. Recruitment, not as much. It's only when companies really want to really hire their employees. And that's why we opened it up. So we still do that, but it's really staff augmentation for companies where they just want a few software engineers or technical consultants in ServiceNow to just finish a backlog or help the project, like whatever, like specific resources.
And can you expand on the name a bit?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes. Perti is, so the Philippines has, I think, something around 150 to 175 languages, not dialects. There's many more dialects under each language. And so in my language, Perti in the Philippines, it's called Bisaya. It means excellent or excellence. So in one of our part, if you see the culture, in our culture, there's like also like striving for excellence, because while we are obviously not excellent in everything we do, we always strive to be the best and to excel. So that's really part of our culture, is like to excel.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much. And just to spell it, so it is P as in Paul, E as in Edward, R as in Romeo, T as in Tango, I as in Irene, .ca. We'll post the link as well in this so that people can have access to it. Okay, well, with that, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. Thank you, Sarah, for going through this step of the journey. Thank you, Monette, for being here and sharing your time with us. Everybody that joined us live, we really appreciate it. And everybody that's been watching the recordings afterwards, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. We hope that you're learning from it and helping in your journey. And just know, we're all going through our own stage, and we all have our own struggles at every stage as well. You're not alone with that element of it, but leverage people, reach out, discuss it. And that's one of the big things that we're trying to discuss openly here, is some of the struggles. Things like Chris has failed tests, certification tests. It happens. But what I do from there is I pick up and do what it takes to get going or to move forward. And I'm hoping that can help you move forward. Okay. Well, with that, thank you so much. I hope you all have a lovely day and an even better weekend, unless it's already the weekend and you're listening to this. Okay. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Sarah.